Hello there, this is B.R. Neumann, and you are listening to a 15-card tarot spread drawn specifically for you at this moment in time. Before we get into it, I'll explain the significance of each region of the tarot spread. And if you happen to already be familiar with the way this is all going to work, you can simply skip on over to the 2-minute and 45-second mark, at which point the reading will begin. Otherwise, I will now give you the means to follow along by explaining these regions. And there are 5 such regions, starting with the central theme, and the 2-dimensional timeline doorways on either side of it. The central theme is the card in the very center of this spread, and on either side of it there are 2 doors. You can choose one. And on the other side of these doors are entire dimensional timelines outlined by 3 cards each. So that would be the upper left-hand and upper right-hand regions. In the lower left-hand region, you'll see 3 cards, and those are your most distant past, the past immediately following the most distant past, that's relevant to this spread, and then the most recent past, which is of course directly related to the central theme, and plays a part in creating the central theme, which is a snapshot of this current situation in which you are embedded, from which you'll be making the choice regarding how you will proceed according to these 2-dimensional timeline options. On the lower right-hand side, there are 3 cards outlining your fate section, the first of which is what is going to immediately happen, no matter what choice you do make. However, it's important to note that you choose the way it unfolds, the way you experience it, the nature of it, the flavor of it, according to your chosen dimensional timeline. And then obviously the 2 remaining cards are simply what happens after that, and then what happens after that, the ultimate fate section, which is simply what the entire spread is leading you to, preparing you for. It's the final culmination. So bear in mind as I proceed that you always have the option to not activate the card, by choosing to avoid or failing to embrace the opportunities presented therein. The events in your life will simply unfold according to the greatest probabilities. The idea here is to put the steering wheel in your hands, so whatever you choose, make sure that you embrace or activate the potentials outlined by each definition. Otherwise, what occurs is something like surrendering the unfolding of events to the random, to what I've called the dead mechanism of the universe. A rather impersonal force, much like the forces of nature, that really don't have any consideration for your experience within the whole process. But you, as a self-aware, conscious, sentient being, can actually, elect the nature of the experiences that you have, and make them really pan out for you, avoiding any unnecessary complications, and really taking advantage of opportunities presented. So with that, we'll jump right into your central theme. The Lust card. Number 11 of the major arcana, this card embodies the process of transcending basic, petty, lower, primitive desires in place of higher reasoning, higher sense of morality. Through this process, the individual harnesses all of that raw potential energy, drawing strength from the wisdom and sense of integrity that ensues. Ultimately, this experience is quite inspiring and does fuel creativity, as well as a general sense of fulfillment and liberty. This card is associated with Leo, and more specifically, Venus in Leo. So this is creative development of passion, instilling a sense of joy. On the Tree of Life, the Lust card is the bridge between Sphirith number 4, Chesed, and Sphirith number 5, Gebura. Sphirith number 4 is benevolence. It's a healing energy that repairs the world. And Sphirith number 5 is a boundary-setting mechanism, a filter, if you will. It's the foundation of stringency. So this is where you'll find conflict, anxiety, defeat, and disappointment, but not without purpose. It's character building, strength building. By bridging the benevolence and healing force of Chesed with the stringency of Gebura, a powerful remedial force is applied to the source of drama, conflict, anxiety, worry, cheating, defeat, and disappointment alike, as higher laws render lower laws irrelevant. This indicates a time of great self-reflection, honest acceptance, and a sense of accountability, so long as the lower primal inclinations are identified as such. So this central theme is not only like a snapshot of your current situation, but it also outlines the areas of your life in which this entire tarot spread is referencing most directly. So you can reflect upon the nature of this card in order to discern the areas of your life that this spread is most relevant to. The more you reflect, the more insight you will be able to derive from this spread. From this position, you can choose the left-hand path or the right-hand path. So we'll start with the left. If consciously activated, your experience of this card will bring about 3 cards, which I will define in order. The first of which being the immediate response to having chosen this card. having chosen this doorway or this dimensional timeline. And the second and third cards in this section being the events unfolding immediately after the initial response to the activation of this dimensional timeline, and the final culmination, especially when juxtaposed with the fate section, which we will cover last. Alright, so the following card is the doorway. Option 1, left-hand side. The Prince of Swords. Like all princes, like all court cards in tarot, the Prince of Swords is associated with one of the 16 Myers-Briggs personality profiles. So there are 16 profiles and 16 court cards, so conveniently. In this case, the Prince of Swords is associated with the ESTP, or the Extroverted Sensing Thinking Perceiver, the ultimate realist, a very spontaneous personality profile that has a very unconventional approach to just about anything. They can be fun, they can be gregarious, they live for here and now, and they're quite good at problem solving. They're really good at running simulations in their mind, and then testing out those simulations in real time. So despite their, at times, unpredictable nature, they can be reliable in that they're always seeking the answer, seeking the truth, seeking the best outcome, the kinds of end results that we can all agree upon. They may have an unconventional approach, but their sense of outcome quality is generally accepted as realistic, in accordance with the general consensus, and they can be relied upon to take action as opposed to not taking action. They're very active, they're not passive. If there's a problem, they will find a way to do something about it even if no one else does. So it may just be that this profile can be a kind of map, a guideline, a strategy, and can maybe point to the kind of perspective you must have in order to make the best of the situation. Okay, so if this is the doorway you choose, it will bring about your direct experience of the following 3 cards, which I will now define in order. The Three of Cups. Like all threes in tarot, the Three of Cups is associated with Binah on the Tree of Life, number 3, and this is associated with the left hemisphere of the brain, so this is deductive reasoning, rationality, logic, that which allows whatever is imagined in the right hemisphere of the brain to be actualized, materialized, and used for something productive. So in this case, as manifest through water, this is the experience of abundance, fertility, celebration, aligning oneself with the law of attraction emotionally, celebrating as if the desired end result has already come to pass. So that's really the theme here. In many cases, embracing this card entails the celebration of the desired end result, celebrating it as if it has already happened, whether or not it has already come to pass. So this aligns the self with the law of attraction, thus bringing about the desired end result. So the celebration is a kind of activation of your desired result. So the appearance of this card often indicates that this is either already happening or this is called for. Maybe now is the time to take some time to celebrate what you want. Celebrate it as if you already have it, know it, or are it. Upon personal reflection, the details should be quite obvious. The Five of Wands. Like all fives in tarot, this has ties to Kabura on the Tree of Life, Sphirith number 5, known as the Sphirith of Strength. It's judgment, it's boundaries, the foundation of stringency, so it's not always pleasant. In this case, as manifest through fire, through wands, this is conflict, or drama, for the sake of itself. It seems rather needless, but it serves to remind you that it is unnecessary. Perhaps you just need to get fed up with it. You need to look at it head on, straight in the face, until you're absolutely tired of it. And this may be surfacing over and over to provide you the opportunity to do exactly that. Enough is enough, but only when enough is enough. Until you decide, apparently you haven't yet had enough of it. Embracing this card would entail honestly taking a look at what no longer serves you, what you've outgrown. Embracing this card entails total acceptance of it. Total acceptance of the fact that you've outgrown it, that you no longer need it, that it no longer serves you, that it's not in line with who you truly are, and also that it's your responsibility. So long as it persists, it is persisting only because of you. So the intent of this card, though it may seem needless at first, is to actually strengthen your ability to set healthy boundaries. And you have to admit, there is a lot of needless drama in this world that really needs to be kept in check. We all collectively must learn how to do this, and that's the role of this card, and that's the role of Gabura manifest through fire. If you feel ready to set the necessary boundaries, the best time to do so might be now. If you don't yet feel ready to set such boundaries, this card does ensure that the needless drama will persist until you are ready. Everything will happen within its right time, and you'll know when that time comes. The Eight of Discs. Like all eights in tarot, this is associated with Sphirith 8, Hod, on the Tree of Life, which is action taken from acceptance or surrender, and in this case, as manifest through discs or earth, this is proper investment. This is management, wise calculation, careful consideration of your resources. And this is associated with Virgo, so meticulous consideration of details, emphasis on personal service, and responsible action, So upon careful consideration and personal reflection, you should be able to determine precisely what this is referring to. Consider the possibility that the action you have been avoiding may in fact be the action you must take at this time. Go straight for it. Embracing this card will entail slowing down, looking at all of the details. What could you be missing? Assume that there is something that you're missing, that you need more information. Delve into the situation, knowing that you're going to be taking in a lot of information. Study everything you can. Investigate everything until you can stand it no longer and must take action. So it's implied here that there is a need for confidence in your action, and you cannot have confidence unless you are absolutely certain about the integrity and quality of what you're doing. So proceed cautiously. Dot all of your I's, cross all of your T's. Proceed patiently, slowly, but proceed nonetheless. Even if it takes you more time than you're comfortable with, appropriate action is worth the wait. Alright, so if you spend a moment to imagine what this unfolding of events might look like for you, and is this something that you would enjoy? Is this something you would benefit from? Are there unnecessary complications in this that you might prefer to avoid? To do this sufficiently, it's good to have something to compare it to. Another timeline to reference, perhaps. So, we'll jump right into that, starting with the doorway, or point of activation. Option 2, right-hand side. The Knight of Wands. Like all knights, like all court cards in tarot, this is associated with one of the 16 Myers-Briggs personality profiles. There are 16 of those, and there are 16 court cards. So the Knight of Wands corresponds to the ENTJ, or the extroverted, intuitive thinking judger, a natural leader, visionary, somebody who's argumentative, somebody who plans systems cautiously, and someone who commands that those systems, those strategies are carried out. This is someone who does not tolerate incompetency, but they can be very gregarious, sometimes becoming associated with groups or societies devoted to competency in its varying forms. And so because of this personality profile tends to climb socio-political ladders, achieving tremendous success in many areas, or maybe just one area, figuratively climbing to the top of a pyramid, seeking the very top of a competence hierarchy. So this individual might have political inclinations, or they might simply be wired for business. In any case, gaining power is the name of the game, and they are very good at it. Embracing this card will entail prioritizing matters that would be in line with his personality profile. Whether or not this is a match for your personal wiring, this card beckons it forward, beckons it out of you. It's called for in one way or another as a kind of strategy. This personality profile can be easily translated into a game plan, or an outline of the ideal perspective you should have in order to make the best of the situation. Many of us who aren't a match for this profile at least know people who are, in which case the experience of this card would likely either be such individuals playing a more prominent role in our lives, or such individuals being ideal role models, if our intent is to make the best of the situation. An intent I would certainly encourage. Okay, if you walk through this door, you will bring about the following 3 cards, in order. The 7 of Swords. All 7s in tarot are associated with Sphere number 7 on the Tree of Life, known as Netzach. This has to do with what is called the harsh kindness of God, a temporary obstacle that's placed before you that allows you to build up enough potential energy to burst through it. And when you do so, when you gain that amount of power, when similar obstacles arise in the future, you simply transcend them effortlessly, perhaps without even noticing them. And as manifest through air, through swords in this case, this is a leap of faith, despite a sense of futility. So this is taking action from a place of believing that it's hopeless, that everything's just going to go awry, nothing's going to quite pan out, but doing something anyway. It's important to note that it may not be true that it is hopeless. There's merely the sense of it, a sense of hopelessness and futility, but action taken from that place has to involve a great deal of faith, and a faith of this quality does often bring with it its own set of rewards. The Two of Cups. Like all 2s in tarot, the Two of Cups is associated with Chokhmah on the Tree of Life, Sphere number 2. So this is the first power of conscious intellect within creation, its imagination, its potentiality pondered, and intuitive insight. And this is associated with the right hemisphere of the brain, the region that deals with abstract thought. So all of the 2s denote the experience of reflection, contemplation of possibility. In this case, specifically as manifest through water, this is the experience of ecstatic love, fantasy, a romantic dream. Its subject is the pursuit of bliss, and often indicates a time in which one must become very clear about what they truly want, what they truly desire, becoming as honestly clear as one can be. regarding wants, desires, and the pursuit of ecstatic love, aligns the self with the law of attraction, allowing one to broadcast a singular frequency, attracting a singular result. A lack of clarity regarding this area broadcasts mixed signals out to the universe, which does not know what to respond with. The Two of Cups calls for such coherence. The Six of Wands. Like all sixes in tarot, it's associated with Tiferet on the Kabbalistic tree of life, which is associated with beauty, the light of Christ, spirituality, integration, compassion. It's a very benevolent force, and as manifest through fire, this is success after trials. So there is some struggle involved, but it's more of a past tense struggle. There may be some trauma associated with the struggle that you've been through, but you have emerged victorious in this card. So this would entail really owning that, just really deciding that the trials are over and you've won your battles. So the decision has to be very conscious, of course, because like all of the fire cards, this is the direction of will. This is the activation of consciousness within the body, within time, within the experience of finite reality. Therefore, embracing or activating this card would entail presence, choosing to be present, choosing to be here, now, really living in the state of victory that you have achieved, living in the hard-won state of peace, in the hard-won state of perhaps successful action. Peace can look any number of ways, but the core experience in this case is whatever ensues from having outgrown old patterns, having chosen something different, and therefore created something different. So there it is. If you take a moment to imagine the unfolding of these events and consider whether or not this is an ideal option for you, and compare it to the other dimensional timeline, this should provide you with everything that you need to make a conscious decision. Upon reflection, you should have a clear sight of the spectrum of potentiality you're working with right now, and then proceed to make your choice. And then stick to that choice, because there could be a temptation involved. If one of these timelines has more gravity to it, for example, it has more probabilities associated with it. If there's a habit involved with the unfolding of one particular event, or addiction, for example, then you might be tempted to consistently step over to that dimension from the one that you might prefer. So be mindful of any temptations you might face, and just manage the potentials as consciously as you can as you proceed. And in order to do that, it's good to have a clear sight of the past section, what you're working with, what has built up to this moment, what your instincts are, what tendencies you may have in response to habitual patterns or familiarity itself. Sometimes the way we always have done things, whether it's easy or not, is the most comfortable. It's the most familiar. Whether or not this is actually good for us, whether or not the paradigm that creates is truly beneficial. Sometimes we stick to things that are simply not serving us, patterns that we may have long since outgrown. So the way that we're going to deal with this past section is by considering the activated potential of each card. We'll talk about the definition of each and what it means, or what the implications of this card are based on the idea that you would activate them. And in doing so, in activating the card, you would be gaining the perspective that you require to move forward, gaining the wisdom, gaining the insights from the experiences that you've had, so as to more consciously make the decision about how you're going to proceed forward. The card in your most distant past may in fact be something deeply rooted in your childhood experiences, something that is perhaps at the core of your being, something contributing to much of what you decide to do in life from a subconscious point. And the subconscious is, of course, massive, much more massive than we realize, dealing directly with a huge amount of the information that we interface with on a day-to-day basis. So the subconscious is hugely involved with the decisions that you're going to make moving forward. So in order to gain insight about the workings of the subconscious, it's good to look into the most distant past. And by observing the potentials of this card activated, as they would unfold activated, you can gain the insight about how exactly you're going to do that. You're going to gain insight about the truth of its influence on this part of your subconscious. The card immediately following that would be the direct result of the workings of your subconscious, and then the card following that is, of course, what leads to your central theme. Embracing and therefore activating each of these cards is a process akin to integration, or closure, if you will, revisiting and perhaps resolving events or experiences seemingly embedded in your past that are still active, still actively contributing to your current state and the choices that you're making regarding your future. So here they are, the 3 cards in your past section, in order, starting with your most distant past. The Queen of Discs. Like all queens, like all court cards, the Queen of Discs is associated with one of the Myers-Briggs personality profiles, of which there are 16. 16 profiles, 16 court cards. So convenient. And in this case, the Queen of Discs is associated with the ISFJ, the Introverted Sensing Feeling Judger. This is a very loyal person, someone with a high sense of duty, someone who works behind the scenes, who's ready to sacrifice themselves to do whatever is necessary. Very responsible, very accountable, and they prefer doing. They prefer being part of the solution in any way they can. Whether or not there's an actual problem, they're very progressive. They move constantly upwards and outwards, expanding themselves, expanding everyone with whom they come into contact. They see it as their duty, their responsibility, their mission, sometimes to the detriment of themselves, but not always. This is a personality profile that does understand the importance of filling up their own glass before sharing. So that's just due to the responsibility factor. They know how to maintain their resources in order to ensure that they will be, continuously able to give, to serve, building themselves up to whatever power is necessary, to whatever status is necessary. Sometimes to be most effective in the world, we have to gain some kind of authority. We have to have gone through a certain kind of experience in order for others to trust us as professionals. This profile gets that, understands that truth. So the presence of this card, if not as simple as this is you, this is your natural wiring, implies that this profile is being beckoned forward, is being called for. Perhaps this profile outlines an ideal strategy, or points to an ideal perspective you could have in order to make the best of the situation. Maybe a little more responsibility is called for, maybe a little more loyalty, maybe sacrifices must be made, maybe it's time for you to hold yourself accountable. Deep and honest personal reflection will provide all of the details you need. The Queen of Cups. Like all of these court cards, the Queen of Cups is aligned with one of the 16 Myers-Briggs personality profiles. In this case, this is the INFJ, or the Introverted Intuitive Feeling Judger, someone who's an inspiration to other people, someone deeply reflective and introspective, someone who's quietly caring, very creative, linguistically gifted perhaps, and psychic, very contemplative person that has a natural ability to tap into the truth behind illusions. So this personality profile may in fact be what is surfacing. This may in fact be your natural wiring. If this is not the case, embracing this card would entail adopting this personality profile as a kind of strategy, deciding to step back into a more introverted state, deciding to be intuitive rather than basing your decisions on sensory data and evidence, deciding to feel, to not think too much, to not overanalyze, don't get stuck in the process of weighing pros and cons or anything like that, but also to take yourself seriously. Do this with the intention of making something of yourself, being of service to someone or something, of service if not only to yourself, to your goals, to your vision, something that's greater than you or I. Embracing this personality as a method, as a strategy, might bring with it psychic gifts, creative abilities, beyond what you had thought possible before. So this shift in perspective, or this shift in attitude or approach, may bring with it some surprising new ingredients. If this personality profile already seems to be a match, this is simply a matter of being yourself, which, truth be told, is not always easy. The Three of Wands. Like all threes in tarot, this is associated with Binah on the Tree of Life, Sphyrith number 3 on the Tree of Life, which has to do with the left hemisphere of the brain, so rationality, logic, deductive reasoning, and this is what allows that which is imagined in the right hemisphere of the brain to be actualized, to be materialized, to be implemented, made real. So as manifest in this case through fire, through wands, this is confidence, this is skill, the development of some kind of new talent or new ability. And since this is happening through the element of fire, rather than earth, for example, this happens rather automatically. It's not forced, it's not planned for, it's not mapped out, this is not according to a strategy. This is just simply inspired action, raw, primal, straight from the source, like a volcanic eruption or the Big Bang. In order for this to occur, embracing this card will entail being thrown out of your comfort zone, in all likelihood. To bring about such inspired action so miraculously or suddenly, there has to be a need, there has to be incentive, like bringing about an instinctive response of sorts. Just doing what's necessary. So for example, if there's a dream that you've been having, that you would love to see come into fruition someday, well, this says just do it. Just get it done. Worry about how you're doing it, or rather, watch how you're doing it while you're doing it. Learn from your own action. Take note of this. You can gain a new level of self-trust through the experience of this card. And if this new self-trust means lasting confidence, you'll have everything you need. Alright, so your experiences of these 3 cards has contributed directly to your current state, this snapshot of the current situation outlined by your central theme and the 2 choices that you have, or the 1 choice rather, that you have to make regarding these 2 options. So now let's consider your fate section, the most certain probabilities you could possibly have. And I should add, it's important to not take these too literally. Take some time to really reflect on the potentials and creatively think about how the nature of these cards might unfold in your life, how they might be directly related to you. Everyone's unique, we all have our own unique circumstances. So the nature of the potentials within these cards can manifest any number of ways. And since nobody understands your situation like you do, it'll be up to you to really creatively imagine the ways in which these cards might apply. So we'll go over the definitions of each, and the idea is of course to activate them, to embrace them, because to resist them is merely to delay them, or like I said earlier, to hand the controls over to the dead mechanism of the universe, to the random, to the impersonal, that really has no consideration for your comfort, for your ability to take advantage of the opportunities or avoid unnecessary complications and so on. The forces of nature simply do as they do. So, okay, we'll start with the first, the immediate response to the choice that you are going to make, and then proceed from that point on, the events immediately following the first wave, and then the final culmination. It's important to line up these 3 cards with the 3 cards outlining the dimensional timeline that you're going to choose, because your choices obviously are going to affect the way that each one of these waves is going to unfold, so that gives you an idea of how exactly you can influence your fate, how you can tweak and modify the events that are certain to happen in order to make them more beneficial, in order to make them easier, to make them more profitable, and to also avoid any complications that are unnecessary or any old patterns that you have long since outgrown. So here they are, the 3 cards in your fate section, unfolding in 3 waves, in order. The 7 of discs. Like all 7s in tarot, this is associated with spirit number 7 on the Tree of Life, known as Netzach. And this has to do with what is called the harsh kindness of God, a temporary obstacle that may not seem temporary, but it is temporary nonetheless, that's placed there in order to allow you to build up strength, to build up power, to break through it, to transcend that obstacle, so that when similar obstacles arise in the future, you effortlessly transcend them, maybe not even noticing them. So in this case, as manifest through earth, through the element that has to do with the stuff of the earth, matters concerning matter, this has to do with a shift in perspective after failure. So something goes awry, something doesn't quite go as planned, but the emphasis here is on the shift in perspective, the lesson learned. So embracing this card will entail accepting that as a possibility, as a probability, that there is something that is going to go awry. But this is not going to be detrimental, this is not a catastrophic failure, this is one that teaches you something very valuable, how to do something wrong, how not to do something. That can be incredibly useful. In some cases, that's all we need to achieve mastery, is to have done it the wrong way enough times to where you really don't even have the option to do it incorrectly. You could say there are 2 ways to learn something. Learn the way to do it, or discover all of the ways to not do it. Sometimes there's an infinite number of wrong ways to do something, and just a few, if not one, right way to do something. But in many cases, there are an infinite number of right ways to do something just waiting to be discovered, and only a few, if not one, wrong way to do something. Whatever the case may be, do not be troubled when things go awry, when things don't go as planned. It's merely a temporary obstacle, allowing you to build up the strength, the confidence, the certainty, the clarity you require to break through, to transcend, to lead by example, to discover, to invent, to create, to be a trailblazer. There's no telling what might be in store for you. So if nothing else, take it as the blessing of an opportunity to learn and grow. The Priestess. This major arcana card is all about tapping into the source of your power, the great cosmic soup that gives birth to all things, the source of the cosmos, the source of miracles, the source of life itself. The companion card to the Priestess is the Magus, the miracle worker. He draws his power from the Priestess. So he's like the active end of the process of materialization. The Priestess, on the other hand, is the passive end. She is quiet, she's reserved, she's introspective. She doesn't have to make miracles happen. Her very existence is the miracle. However, her presence within this reading, if properly embraced, implies that you have the option of becoming that active side of this, becoming the Magus, working miracles, and then watch as amazing things unfold before you, instilling a deep sense of faith, not only in yourself, but in your source. More true in this case, your source. Our source, the source of all life. Fully embracing this card does have a prerequisite, that you step back a bit, take a more passive and receptive role, and if you do so with all of your heart, prepare to witness miracles unfold as you discover your reality as the Magus. The key word here, if there has to be one, is trust. The Sun, this major arcana card, stands for creativity and persuasive power. It's the joy of life. When the sun rises, the truth is revealed. Its presence within a tarot spread represents the end of illusions, but only if fully embraced. Embracing this card entails choosing optimism, finding the unconditional light within yourself, making it your priority, your focus, your driving force, your inspiration. The sun is about giving. It's about generosity. With such generosity and such faith comes vitality, a strong sense of purpose, and with that, clarity, confidence in one's own position in the world, in one's own worthiness to exist, in the value of one's own natural gifts, and their prerogative to be of service, to shine this light upon others, and to inspire others to do the same. It's true, the sun is the very thing that makes life possible, but even as it's at its highest point in the sky, we can deny it. We can shut ourselves away and let all of the opportunities it brings with it pass us by. This card surfaces to remind you to not do that. Don't let it pass you by. Step outside. Walk confidently into the light of day. Show yourself. Allow yourself to be seen. The sun is trying to reveal you, because you are worthy of being revealed. So this final card is the aim of the entire spread. Whether it seems to be something you might need to brace yourself for, or something to be excited about and look forward to, it's something that needs to happen. There's something in it for you. And of course, you can change your experience of this card based on the choices that you make. Starting now, starting here in your central theme, based on these two simplified polarities and choices that you have standing before you like two doors. And fortunately, these doors have signs. They explain what happens on either side. And that's what this tarot reading is all about. That's what tarot reading in general is all about. Giving you the ability to make conscious decisions, putting the steering wheel in your hands, allowing you to make the most of what is going to happen, to benefit the most, to take advantage of opportunities, to avoid unnecessary challenges, to give you insight and the ability to reflect on what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen. I like to think of it as a natural byproduct of the universe coming to know itself. And speaking of the universe and the cosmos, further insight can be attained through astrological factors, considering the transits and natal placements that may be influencing everything that's going on here, everything that has happened, and everything that will happen. So of course, I would strongly recommend considering astrological factors, and whether that entails getting an astrological reading, or some kind of birth chart analysis, transit analysis, anything that can give you the kind of specifics you might want regarding the timing of certain events, regarding certain personal tendencies as dictated by natal placements, regarding the grander story arc defined by, a life mission outlined by certain natal placements such as the North Node, Midheaven, Rising Sign, etc. And of course, I would need to be sure to make this available to everyone, and it is, at IamHelios.com. So with that, I thank you so much for listening, and I wish you the very best.